And as you know, I think Bobby mentioned it, I happen to support public charter schools, and I think that's, again, not a panacea to fix all of our education woes, but it is an additional tool in the toolbox to help parents moving forward. Now, there are those in our state who claim to support public charter schools who say we should only have public charter schools, quote, in those places where they're most needed. I'm going to make news and say, I agree with those people. We only need public charter schools in those places where they're most needed. Where I disagree with my friends who say that is this. I don't think Phil Bryant ought to decide that. I don't think Tate Reeves ought to decide that. I don't think the Mississippi legislature ought to decide where they're most needed. That is a decision that parents should make. And it's for that reason that I support public charter schools anywhere in our state. And I think it's something that we ought to continue to push for. But let's particularly talk about those in C school districts. Because there was a point of contention last year, and there was a group that said, I can support public charter schools in D and F districts, but not in C districts, because everything's hunky-dory in C districts. Did you know that there are more kids trapped in failing public schools in C districts than there are in F districts? There are more kids trapped in failing public schools, and I define that as D and F schools, in C districts than there are in F districts. There are 45,000 kids in D and F schools in B and C districts. I don't think we should pass a law which allows for public charter schools that forgets those 45,000 kids that are trapped in failing public schools. And we're going to work very, very hard this year, and I hope with the support of an awful lot of people in this room and throughout the business community, to ensure that we get a good, strong public charter school bill passed in the Mississippi legislature. As I said last year, we already have a bad charter school law in Mississippi. We don't need another one. In addition to public charter schools, we're going to work with the legislative leadership to pass a bill that we passed in the Senate last year, which was a bill which would mandate that our school superintendents after 2015 are appointed, no longer elected. When you look at our results and you consider the following, there are less than 150 elected school superintendents in the United States of America. Less than 150. Over half of them reside in the state of Mississippi. Now, if our scores were in the upper 1 or 2 states, or even in the upper decile, or even the upper quartile of all states out there, then maybe we could say, well, we're doing something different than everybody else, and it makes sense. But that's simply not the case. And so we passed the bill overwhelmingly in the Senate last year. It's something that the business community, and specifically the Mississippi Economic Council, has worked for a long, long time. And we hope that this year we get a vote in the House of Representatives, and if we get a vote, I'm convinced that it will become law. There are other things that we're going to work very hard on as it relates to additional education reforms, things such as the 3rd grade reading bill. I am told that 53%, and these are statistics from last year, 53% of our kids in the 3rd grade are reading at a level considered proficient at grade level. Let me say that again. 53% of our kids in the 3rd grade in Mississippi are reading at a level that is considered proficient at grade level. That's just not good enough. We need to move beyond the idea of social promotion and promoting kids to the 4th grade simply because they are of age to do so. and we need to ensure the kids that move on to the 4th grade are able to read at a proficient grade level. Because the one thing we know for sure is if a kid moving out of the 3rd grade is having trouble reading, the likelihood that they're going to be able to do their math in the 4th or 5th grade or do their science in the 5th or 6th grade is very, very low. And the probability that that child is going to become a statistic, perhaps a dropout, is very, very high. And so I'm going to support that piece of legislation that I'm sure Chairman Tollison is going to drop. And it's something that I think working together we can make a real difference. But I'll also say, and the chairman and I have been working on this, I don't think it's an issue in which you can look at it and hold every 3rd grader accountable in the 1st year. And so I think there's got to be some period of time to see that occur. It doesn't need to be long. It needs to be 12 months or 18 months or 2 years, not 4 years as a recent state just did. But I think you'll see some sort of a very, very quick phase in to the 3rd grade reading bill. And I think there's an awful lot of other education proposals that I'll be happy to address as we continue through the legislative session. An obvious topic is pre-K, something that I personally support, as has been said repeatedly by virtually everyone involved in the appropriations process. We do not have sufficient resources, which has been estimated to be between $300 and $350 million to start a 14th grade. That's not going to happen overnight in our state. And in fact, I personally believe we need to spend the majority of our resources fixing the system that we currently have before we start trying to move into expanding that system. But it's pre-K is something a goal that we should all have, and one that I'm certainly committed to.